Welcome to the Smart Divorce on Divorce Source Radio, helping you move forward with focus, hope, and confidence, saving you time, money, and your sanity as you build a better life post-divorce. I'm Steve Peck. Deborah Moskovitch, divorce consultant, educator, and author of The Smart Divorce, brings you the leading experts and researchers in the divorce arena. We'll be speaking with those in the trenches, people who have learned from their divorce and how their experience has changed their lives. And they would tell you, for the better. Divorce can be rich in opportunity to learn and grow from. And we'll show you how to take this information to create a positive outlook post-divorce life. And now, here's Deborah.
Steve, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Debbie?
Very well. We've got a really interesting guest today. Her name is Hannah McDonough, and we're going to talk about therapy. Did you ever speak with a therapist when you separated?
Yeah, I did for a brief period of time, so I'm really interested to hear what she has to say.
Well, I have to tell you something. I connected with Hannah about a month ago. To me, the best recommendation comes from a client. And I connected with her because a client of mine told me what a fabulous therapist she had. And I find it really hard to find great therapists. I get a lot of referrals from lawyers or other individuals, but to hear it from a client, like someone who's been working with that therapist, to tell me how much that person has helped them change their life, meant so much. So I called Hannah and I reached out to her and I said, listen, I've got a lot of clients looking for a fabulous therapist. What is it? Can you tell me a little bit more about your practice? And we just started talking more and more about the value of therapy and how you know if you've got a good therapist and when to stay and when to go. And I thought, oh my goodness, she would be such a valuable guest for our show.
Do you find that most people in your practice have also sought counseling?
A lot haven't. And it's the first thing that I do when we meet is I say, okay, in addition to a lawyer, you do need to speak to a therapist if you're feeling really emotionally distraught. I shouldn't say you need to. You should consider talking to a therapist because I do find that people are afraid to reach out. There's still sometimes a stigma, I think, I could be wrong, about seeing a therapist, or people don't really consider it. I
find
cost
too, right? Because it's not cheap.
It's not cheap, but in Canada, I don't know if it's like this in the U.S., but if you go see a psychiatrist, Hannah is not a psychiatrist, but if you go see a psychiatrist, it's covered by the medical system. It's covered by OHIP. It's covered by the government.
I think it is here to a degree, depending on what insurance you have.
The problem is because it's free, it's covered by the government, everyone tries to get into, many people try to get into a psychiatrist, so they're booked. It's almost impossible to get into a therapist. To psychiatrist. So the next thing I mentioned to my clients is if you can't get into psychiatrist, there's social workers. There's great, some really wonderful social workers, psychotherapists, psychologists, and they do charge. Some of them have sliding scales, and then some people are fortunate enough that they do have some coverage from their workplace. And the other thing is really, if you want to get better and you want to feel good about yourself and get through the divorce process in a healthier way and in a smarter way, is what I talk about, the smart divorce, it's worth the cost. You're spending thousands on a lawyer. What about spending thousands on yourself?
No kidding.
So when I got this positive referral to Hannah McDonough, I thought, I've got to reach out to this woman, and we've been speaking, and I have a lot of respect for what she does and how she helps her clients.
All right, well, let's get her on the show. Hannah, welcome to Divorce Source Radio.
Thank you. Great to be here.
It is such a pleasure to have you on the show. As I mentioned earlier, I reached out to Hannah because there was an incredible recommendation I had from one of my clients. And when we spoke, one of the things we talked about is how to find a good therapist, because it's so rare that you hear from someone who has had such an incredible experience with a therapist. So Hannah, can you please tell us what you think people should be doing to find a good therapist?
Well, I think you need to ask around and talk to people you really trust and you know they've had a good experience, and go with that. If you can't do that, then I guess you look online, but you've got to know actually what therapy can provide so that you don't settle. So, yeah.
That's a great point, because what exactly is therapy?
Well, there's different kinds. There's the kind that is more like a consultation where someone needs a psychoeducational approach, how to do a good divorce or how to be a better parent. But then there's another one where people come because they feel something's wrong. Their lives aren't working. They're sick and tired of being sick and tired. They're like lost, anxious, depressed. Now there's an implied request for a personal and relational change. This is what we call transformative therapy. This requires that response. And that's the most exciting kind of therapy because people want to be happy, and it's our birthright to be happy. But in order to be happy, you got to know yourself, and you got to make good decisions. And you can only do that by having a place and a space to get to really know and care about yourself.
Oh, I love that.
Also, your unconscious self. See, if you can never do that alone. It's always an intimate relationship where you're the total focus, where that unconscious self can start to become clearer to you. And then your life makes sense.
So within the transformative therapy, is there any science behind what you're saying?
Well, there is. First of all, just to tell you a little bit about the transformative and then on to science, like a well-trained psychotherapist really creates a warm, intimate environment that puts you at ease, makes it easy for you to talk. You don't even notice suddenly you're just talking about a million things because you experience empathy and you experience that you are the attentive focus of this other person, and so then you relax. And the point is that you start to feel heard with compassion and no judgment. And what you feel is bad about you realize your therapist only sees it as something that you need to befriend, to understand, that it'll all come out and you'll understand it. And pretty soon, you start to hear yourself the way your therapist hears you. And you bring yourself the same compassion and interest. And then with time, you start to make real sense to yourself. You become coherent to yourself. So the science behind this is very exciting because, it's just been in the last while that the brain has become the focus of neurosciences. It's the cutting-edge research. And that's expanded our understanding of how therapy works and how to help our clients more effectively in a much shorter time. It's really fun and great research. It shows you, first of all, that babies are born open and trusting and ready for love. Like, how they're always looking into your eyes and their hands and their feet are really like going and excited. Mm-hmm. And there's this gazing between the parent and child in a loving way that actually, we learned, activates the brain of the baby. It's not, the brain baby is kind of open but not really energized until it's in a relationship like of that kind of intimacy. And that awakens and quickens the optimal development of the child. And this creates what, we call secure attachment. It was what makes the happiness. And you know what it is? It's what they call it is little mirror neurons in the baby's brain just copy the neurons of the parents.
Isn't that amazing?
So the parents, if they're happy, the baby's happy, right?
Can I just... Yeah, I'm sorry.
One last thing. So the good news is that transformative therapy can provide this secure attachment if it's lacking.
Isn't that fascinating? If we could just go back a second there to what you were talking about, the babies, because, I know that you talk about putting children first and you help parents help their children through the divorce process. One of the things, I attended a session not long ago, it was fascinating, with Jean Clinton. I don't know if you know of her. I think she's a psychiatrist at McMaster University. And she talks about the attachment theory and how, for instance, conflict when children are very young can affect their brain.
Absolutely. Because what it does is it releases cortisol in the brain, and that attacks brain cells. And what you really want is you want all the good hormones to be triggered in your relationship and with your children, and not the bad ones. The bad ones actually, it creates insulin in the body. And in attachment theory, what they did is they looked at kids who were really securely attached, and they found those kids had no cortisol in their brain, but it was all in the parents' brain because, see, the parents are worrying, attentive, caring. So they're anxious, worried for their baby. That's good. Where the kids were actually neglected, their brains were full of cortisol, and they were completely alone, and they were scared, and they were trying to take care of themselves even as tiny babies. So, yes, it's like a very powerful issue.
So, wow, this is fascinating. It opens up a lot of questions now. So if you grew up in a situation where there was a lot of conflict, okay, and now I'm in therapy and I'm trying to dig deep so that I don't repeat the same relationship patterns and repeat some of the mistakes that I've made, because I'm trying to repair, perhaps, I'm not even sure if I'm phrasing this right, if I'm trying to dig down deep, but
if you went through that kind of trauma, right, Debbie, when you were a little child, whether it be your family going through a divorce or someone leaving you, that scars your brain? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome.
That's so helpful.
Good job.
So if actually the brain does get scarred in that way, it does come out. It just makes sense that it would come out later in life.
Yeah. Well, what we learned is that when you're little, the brain is pretty primitive until you're 24, when your neocortex is developed. So that means that if something bad happens, there's a little part in your amygdala that keeps saying, "Oh, watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out," and we're just scared. Don't do that, don't do this, so on. And it's kind of negative. So, it's the creating of the positive experiences that then slowly you start to operate out of the better side. Therapy can do that for you. A long-term good relationship will do that and restore a kind of sense of coherence to yourself, a sense of your goodness, a sense of inner contentment.
So if I'm in therapy with you and I'm trying, I've really been scarred by my childhood and perhaps even by some relationships. How do you help an individual? Like, what are some of the key concepts that you want people to really to hammer home to people?
Where do you
really
start?
Think about? Yeah.
Well, first of all, what was the thing? If you've got what?
Well, you're scarred. You've got some emotional issues which are real and valid because of what you experienced, because of the conflict. So because of that, and because you might be repeating patterns, and that's the role modeling from when you were a child, and now you're in a verbally abusive relationship as an adult, how do you help someone think differently? Yeah,
well, it's the way that you treat them in the therapeutic situation that they, like babies, take it in from their neurons that imitate you. Like, if they're used to every week at the same hour having that same kind, focused attention, they start giving it to themselves. They change. They actually change. Their brain changes, just like the baby's brain changes, in the right kind of context that is very focused and empathic. And so they start making sense of themselves. And you see, in the process, they learn what their triggers are, what their raw spots are, and then when they're in a relationship, they no longer let themselves, blow up, go crazy, blame the person. They say, this is my thing again, and they learn to calm themselves down. Secure babies are very patient, and they can wait, and they can calm themselves. And that's a skill they get from being very attached. So if you've got a well-attached therapy, you can learn this yourself, how to soothe yourself, not turn to your partner. Here's the problem. When you feel deprived, you're not really aware of it, but you look around for someone to make you happy. And you go and you marry somebody, but you don't realize that we always marry our emotional equals. We marry people that we reproduce whatever the atmosphere was in our family. We do that. And then we think that it's all their fault. But at the marriage, what you think, in the contract, what you think is, this person is going to make me so happy. And you're both thinking that, right? And then you get into it, and you're triggered by things, and your lost thoughts get hit, and suddenly you just want to blame the other person because you don't know yourself enough to know, hey, this is my stuff.
Well, Hannah, why are we attracted to what we don't want?
No, it's not that we don't want it. It's all we know. Like the skills that we learn for being with other people, we learn it from being in the family. That's what we learn. So the first half of our life is just automatic repetition after we leave home. It's only after a while that we start to think, well, wait a minute, I don't know if I want it this way. And that's when you become a little more conscious that you're a little bit unhappy. And that's when you start seeking out ways.
So it's the role modeling. It's role modeling. You see your parents in one way. If they fight in a certain way, if they communicate in a certain way, you're more likely to do that.
Yeah, it's those little mirror neurons in your brain. You're just going to do what you saw. You're going to think this is normal. And you're going to meet someone who does that, and you're both normal. And then one day you're going to be pretty disappointed with each other until you find out that you're actually just disappointed with yourself.
Yeah, well, Debbie, that's kind of what I meant. I mean, if your parent, your mom and dad weren't getting along together, but you end up with someone like your dad, you're really going out marrying something that you really didn't want. But there's an attraction there because you were familiar with it? Yeah,
that's right. And you see, at that point, you do have a choice. You can go down the blame game and alienate each other and end up or you can stop and you can say, hey, you know what? It's not his fault. It's not her fault. Maybe I can actually do something different here. Maybe I can learn something. Because when people find out that they can change, they get so excited because the possibility that we can change ourselves turns us really on and we get really excited by it. So that when you've got clients who start to work on things and they stop the blame and they start the magic formula, which is 10 positive experiences to 1 negative, when they stop the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which is, John Gottman's research, when they stop the criticism, contempt, sarcasm, defensiveness, stonewall, when they put aside the bad things and start doing all the good things, they start to fall in love, first of all, with their ability to change, and then they start liking each other. That's the good news. And sometimes people think, no, they can't do it with this person. They got to go off,
So there's got to be a lot of introspection. Is that what you help people do, is really look inside and get to know themselves? And
embrace themselves with compassion. Like, when they come in, they think they're talking about the good, bad, and ugly, but what we say is, about the good, bad, and ugly, you're talking about how things have felt, and it's okay. Let's just keep talking about them. There's nothing bad about you. Sure, there's some behaviors you want to change, do it. Change the behaviors that are making you feel bad. But what you really have to feel is how you felt bad, how you felt neglected, how you wish someone had picked you up, how you wish that there was more focus. And that's really sad that it wasn't like that. But you can learn to mother and parent yourself. You can learn to do with yourself what I do with you. And when those times are bad during the evening or day you call me, we remember that you can soothe yourself. You know what I mean? It's like a chance to just have a good childhood all over again.
So how do you help people see that?
You know what? It's actually very simple because don't forget there's an unconscious going on between you and the person. You're happy to see them. You create a lovely space for them. You're actually very interested in how they're doing all the time. And if a person hasn't had that before, it's very rich. They start to feel more generous with themselves.
So In terms of the therapy, then, I just want to go back to this a little bit. The transformative therapy versus, because I know that you do psychotherapy. Now, I have it in my mind, and it could be a stereotypic thing, where you're lying down talking. There's no,
you don't have to lie down. You can lie down, and it's good for some people. Or you can start to feel the feelings in your body. That's really the most important thing. Like, when children are left alone and someone isn't saying to them, how are you doing, what are you feeling, what do you want, they cut off their feelings because it's scary to have them alone. So what you do is you warm people up so they can have their feelings, and they find out that they can have feelings. You can't be intimate if you don't have your feelings. And they feel they can have their feelings, they can manage their feelings. They don't have to, get really mad and do things that alienate. They can just say, I wonder if I could talk about something that kind of hurts me. Are you in the mood to listen? It's okay. You can listen every time. They start to talk to their friends and their spouses differently. And it's not as difficult as it sounds.
Is that regressive therapy? I mean, do you go way back?
Well, you go back as it's triggered. You don't necessarily go for the information, just where it's triggered. Something happens in the present, and you're stuck quite crazy, and so then you'll say, well, wonder what that stuckness is. Where is it? Where is it in your body? Do you remember ever feeling like this before? Why is this so big for you? What do you think? And it's just that kind of easy discourse, and people relax, and it comes to them. It comes to them in their dreams, it comes to them in interactions, or they have memories. And then whatever comes, it's all good.
I believe that. And I should share with the listeners that when I was going through my divorce, I had a standing appointment with my therapist. I would go weekly. I used to call it the mechanic. Going to the mechanic. my mental health mechanic. And I would go for my okay, well that was my because I would go for a tune-up every so often after I realized that I could sort of cope on my own. Then I would go every so often for a little tune-up.
It's what we call a checkup from the neck up.
Yeah, and it was it's fabulous. But what I realized when talking to other people who have been through therapy too is that therapy is only as good as the information that you share. And Hannah, maybe you can help people understand that when they're in therapy, they're not being judged, they're not being evaluated on good or bad behavior. It's whatever it is that they're going through that you help them through it. Because some people have this negative connotation about what therapy is and what therapy should be doing.
Yeah, that's so hard for people. If you haven't been listened to and heard, and if you feel bad, you just expect that's what your therapist's going to do if you go for therapy. And you think, well, why would I want to put myself through that again? But if somehow you have the courage to do it, like you get a moment, you read something, you think, okay, I'm going to do it, and someone responds, and you come, and you have that even first experience of relaxing, and all this stuff comes out of you, and you think, holy Moses. But that you get nothing but warmth and kindness and, a little help and some understanding. It can be like a really great experience. And the judgment is what you expect, and it's what you project. But it's not what you're going to get. And if you get it from the therapist, you should move on.
And I think that's a really good point. It's like anything. If there are good and bad plumbers, electricians, dentists, doctors, whatever. And if you feel that you're in a situation that doesn't make you comfortable, you don't have to stay.
No, for sure not, because then you'd be re-traumatizing yourself.
That's right.
So how long do you have to go with a therapist before you know that?
Well, here's a problem which is really big. We just like you choose, people that are like your background. I mean, I knew this one person who came for therapy, but she'd been in 4 years with someone that was exactly the bad experience that she'd had, It was terrible, terrible, terrible. So that can happen.
What a waste.
And you have to be careful, right? But then how do you be careful? Well, it does sometimes happen.
When I went to my therapist, I think when I called him, because I had heard really good things about this individual, he set up a consultation because which I thought was interesting, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I think that he needed to meet me to see if he could work with me just as much as I felt I could work with him, because there does have to be a rapport.
It has to be a great fit because it's a very intimate relationship. It's like a formal intimacy. It's not real intimacy, but it's formal intimacy because you're really completely there for the person. They're not there for you.
That's right.
And they need to feel that. They need to feel that they are the most important to somebody, right?
And that's right. And you're sharing some really intimate details. I mean, I've shared, things about my life with my therapist that nobody knows. And, some
right.
feelings about, about certain situations that I've never shared with anyone. So you've got to feel safe.
Yeah, you've got to feel completely safe. And you got to know that what's said here stays here and never moves out of here. You don't even remember. They gotta have a feeling that, you don't even remember. It's their material and it's their journey, it's their stuff, and it's wonderful, and they transform it.
Yeah.
One of the things that's bugged me about therapy in the past is the time constraints. You've got this 45 minutes or 1 hour, and it seems like just when you get going, it's time to go. It's magic every time.
It's funny they say that because one of the things I do is I just give people, Steve, I'm really glad you brought this up because the 45-minute hour is a very weird thing left over from Freud's days, But when I start, I always start with an hour and a half or two, and then I just tell people that they should come for tell me how much time they need, and that's it. I never want to cut anybody off because then it's the same old thing, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm busy rather than you're important.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love the way you think.
That is so right on. And it's so frustrating.
And you know what happens? They come at the beginning for long, long times, and then as they start to feel secure, they come for less long times. And they wean themselves out the way they want. Like it's their business, not mine.
Yeah. Hannah, I went through your website. I think it's fabulous, hannatherapy.com. I learned really a lot of different things. I noticed you did a presentation, so I'm just mixing it up a little bit. We've got a lot of listeners that are contemplating divorce, in the throes of divorce, maybe some people that are not even married, but there was a presentation that you made on how to keep your marriage hot.
Oh, right. That was a lot of fun.
So if you are contemplating divorce, is it possible to turn it around and put your marriage back on track?
It's funny how a lot of people it's kind of a common parlance to think that when the honeymoon's over, the honeymoon's over. And, it's completely wrong. The honeymoon is just the beginning. And if it doesn't stay as hot as the honeymoon or get better, then, hey, let's jack it up a bit and see what's wrong here. Because, as people get more and more intimate with each other, it needs to be deepening. That the sex should be better and much more open and eyes open, socket sex, electric socket sex, where you're absolutely open with each other, where you don't have anything but excitement to share, and you're not ashamed of things that you would like to experience with each other and how you want to do it. That's the best that life has to offer, that and the intimacy with kids and with your friends and so on.
Do you think people are afraid to totally open up and be themselves with their partner?
Well, I think until you become your authentic self, you don't know how to share. That's where you need the therapy, to become really who you are. Because once you are who you are, you don't mind disclosing to your partner or anybody else because you're not needing their approval. You're just disclosing for the pleasure of sharing who you are with somebody. They don't want you different. You don't want to be different. Like you're together, you're also separate. You support each other's individuality and separateness. David Schnarf in his Passionate Marriage, he's really good on this whole topic of you can't be close if you also aren't separate. And it's the excitement of being together separate that makes it really work best.
Sounds a little bit like Khalil Gibran as well.
Because if you're too dependent on each other, you don't give each other any room.
Mm-hmm.
That's like you need room to be yourself and give the other person room. And then when you get together, it's so hot, it's exciting. You do what you want to do together. You don't do what you think should be done.
So, do you think that people they're kind of needy? That they just...
I just think if people don't have a secure attachment, if it's a tragedy not to have it. It's not that they're bad. The tragedy was they didn't get the secure attachment. They have to learn it, right? And when they learn it and they get it, they can do it. It's fine. But if they don't learn it, then they're always got this kind of fear, and then there's projections of things, and then they start to think they're back at home, and they act as though the other person's going to be whatever was the negative, So just that's the difficult part, just that beginning change. To feel good about yourself.
Right. And how is this different in terms of the therapy that you do when you do the couples counseling? So it's
not that different. I have to also create a really secure space to meet them together, and then I meet them individually so that they can both feel that I'm on both their sides. Like my client then is the relationship. It's not him or her, it's the relationship.
Oh, I like that.
So I work with both of them to get that going. And I put them opposite each other. And the only things I do teach them at the beginning is I slow them down and teach them the art of the intimate conversation, which means you slow a conversation down and you basically have a 10-minute conversation, and it takes the whole hour because you're teaching the listening and you're really trying to hear each other and you're trying to be empathic and put aside judgments. And when people start really doing that, then a whole lot of things that they've been wanting to tell each other comes out. But it's not like telling each other bad stuff, like there's something wrong with you. Telling each other about themselves. They start to really tell each other about themselves, and they start to fall in love.
So, are there certain words that you should stay away from?
Yeah.
Well, no, no, I know you're laughing, but the ones that you should stay are like yeah, but, yeah, and you always and you never and the last time and then you did that and then you did that. All those things. Blame. Yeah, that's exactly.
They just don't work. They just don't work. And, you got to know a few things, which is what are the things that wreck marriages? What are the things that build them? What are the differences between men and women? What is it you have to take care of? Like men and women are different, and it's important. Like, for instance, men can't tolerate shame. And women need to protect their men from that. Women can't tolerate abandonment. We're just built differently, so the men need to protect their women from it. I mean, there's things that you just got to, you don't say things as soon as you think of them. You process stuff. You wait for the right time. You think it out. You write things down. You just learn the art of self-mastery together, and then you use it. Right?
Listen to your inner self, because if you listen, you probably will have heard yourself saying, don't say that. Don't, whatever you do, don't.
Yeah,
and then you do it.
Don't.
Well,
yeah. And then also learning to do. Like do make a fuss, like do make a great dinner, like do those dates, do those sex times no matter what. Bring everything you are to each other, get involved with each other's lives. Like, there's so many things. I mean, it's like there's no end to all the stuff you can do together when you just decide, hey.
So do you find that people get lazy after a while? I don't need to dress up for my partner anymore. I don't need to, make those great meals anymore. I'm too tired. It's like that kind of thing. I'm so busy with the kids. I'm doing my shopping. I'm paying the bills. And then all of a sudden the relationship loses its focus.
Well, it is a lot that, people are demanding of themselves these days, like with technology on 24/7 and with everybody's trying to be Superman and Superwoman. It's kind of hard. So if we're really hard on ourselves, it's hard to build a really loving and fun thing, right?
So when you have a couple that comes in, or even an individual that says, I'm not happy, what are the 5 or 3 tips that you try to share with them that can help them look at things that the glasses half full rather than half empty? Help them look for their happiness. Like, what do you do to look for your happiness?
Well, I tell them that it's not their fault. I hear that you're not happy, and please don't blame yourself. It's terrible. Tell me how it feels to be unhappy now. So they get empathy about it instead of judgment. They come in judgmental about why they're not happy. Can you imagine being judgmental with yourself if you're not happy? It's not your it's not your fault. You love to be happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you didn't get it and you don't have it, it's a tragedy rather than a judgment, right?
Yeah.
So you go with that, and then you ask them to describe the parts that make them unhappy and what's that like, and then what do they do, and then and then when was the last time that you did feel any time that was good? Can you talk about those times? And you're lucky if they can, and that's great. And then you try to build a bit about that, and then you try to help them to understand that there's probably different parts of themselves that they need to befriend so that they've got more of themselves with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of you see, when they get mad at themselves, then they cut off different parts of themselves, and they don't have access to all of themselves.
Right.
That sounds a little complicated, but sorry.
Well, one of the things that I learned when I was doing my research for the Smart Divorce, and I spoke to many mental health professionals, and I discussed the topic of happiness and really what is happiness and how do you find, I guess it's more like content, how do you find that contentment? Yeah. And one of the mistakes I think that people were making was waiting till they're happy to do things rather than doing things to get them to that stage of happiness. When I lose my 15 pounds, then I'll do X. When I can finally run 3 miles, then I'm going to try to do a half marathon. Rather than training for a half marathon as a goal, people are waiting to achieve certain things, and then they never really achieve those things. So I think you almost have to break things down into bite-sized pieces. You got to chunk it.
Yeah, or they're looking for someone else to make them happy. Just have to find the happiness within.
Else. Yeah, that's right, Steve. And then also, this sort of self-deprival. I'm not going to do this until I do that. You can hear the parents saying, can't you? Until you do this, you're not going to get your ice cream, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You're doing the same thing. But I think have your ice cream first if that's what you need, right? So it's not a big deal. But if it was a big deal, then it takes a while to catch on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The wonderful thing is, once you're an adult and you get over you're completely free to do as you please, right?
Yes.
I mean, the trouble with being a child is you are trying to and having to fit into something. And so when you first become an adult, you keep this idea of trying to fit in and be good and all this, and so you're always sort of slightly resentful. But when you start to get to be your authentic self, you realize you're free. It's wonderful. You do as you please, and you can be as loving as you want because you're not being resentful, thinking that you're, under somebody or something's thumb, right?
Yeah, I like that because I think you do need to become your authentic self, and I don't think people necessarily are. They're trying to be someone who they think their partner will like. Yeah, they should be.
Hey, can I ask a guy kind of question here?
Oh, yes, we love guys.
All right. I want to know the role sex plays in a relationship. And is that a sign when it starts to wane that you have problems, my friend?
You know what they say? They say sex is really big when it's not going well, and it's very small when it's going great. In terms of what the problems are, right? So typically when couples are unhappy, they say sex, money, and time are the problems in their relationship.
In that order?
Time, Yeah. Well, no, the men will say the sex first.
Yeah.
The women will say he doesn't listen to me. He doesn't. And you see, here's another thing: women and men are different. Women want their men to talk to them. Men would rather have holes drilled in their feet than have to sit and have a conversation, right, about their relationship. So, like, you got to come at it from a different focus with each other. But
Yeah.
I think the issue of sex is unfortunately not discussed enough in our lives and with each other, and a lot of the sex goes like towards lack of relationship in the sex.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, it's more like an activity rather than an intimacy at times, and actually it's an extraordinarily wonderful way to be close. It's like playtime, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, does a sex change? So if you've been married to someone for 20 years, obviously I would think, because I haven't been married to someone for 20 years, or been in a relationship for 20 years, that the sex changes because you're with that same person.
Why? I mean,
no, I don't think so. I think this is really the media problem. We hear that all the time, but it's not the truth. It's not the truth. The research does not support that. The research supports that long-term couples have way better and more consistent and more often sex than people who are single or who just got started. Because when you just get started, gosh, you don't know the terrain. You got all your fears and everything. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it gets a bad rap, right?
Mm-hmm, it does.
That's good to know.
But you know what I like? I like the fact of the differences between men and women. I like the fact that men are more sexually oriented. I like that, and I like that women are more relationally, and then they have to play this thing out so that everybody wins, because men really do like the relational stuff when they finally get over the other stuff. And the women love the sexual stuff. And if you put the whole thing together, it's a pot of honey, right?
Oh, yeah. And if you just work at it every day, and it shouldn't have to be a lot of work, but telling each other how much you appreciate them, how sexy they are, how wonderful they are to you, it all comes naturally.
That's right. And do it like 100 times or 20 times a day rather than store it up. Like, what's storing it up for?
Yeah, why?
That's true. But I think go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think a lot of it comes down to your authentic self. If you can feel totally comfortable with your partner, and that you're not being judged, and you can say and do anything, then everything becomes better because you're true to yourself.
It's exciting, and that's it. I think James Hollis, who wrote, he's Jungian, and he wrote a book called "From Meaning to Misery." No, the middle years, from misery to meaning. And what he's talking about is when you give up having to get somewhere, having to prove you're good, all that stuff, and you finally start to think that you listen to your inner voice. What is it that life wants from me? What's my true calling? That happens when you're around 40 or 50 or something. That's when you really deepen into the real things, the real you, when you start putting that together. I mean, it's really a really important understanding of it's later in life that your true calling to life comes. Because you're very busy in your early life, You're sort of a bit driven, you got to succeed. In our society, you got to do so much. I don't know how we manage. But anyway, it's then this kind of stillness inside you. You start to listen to yourself.
It's one of the great things of getting older, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So as we get older, though, what are the biggest fears you find that people have?
Well, I think being alone.
Mm-hmm.
I think if people are alone, they're terrified about old age.
So do you think...
Yeah, go ahead.
So do you think that's why people get into bad relationships the next time around?
No, but I think there's something about that sometimes people fear getting old, and then they sort of want to be with a young person or something, thinking that will restore their youth, instead of, mourning some of the things that you lose, but appreciating also what you gain. And I guess also, the terrible thing is we do have to face death, and people don't like to think about that in our society. And you got to make friends with that, and then you're really free.
There's a difference between being alone and being lonely.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What would you say it is?
Wow. Well, you could be in a relationship that has been married for 20 years, and you could be very lonely. You're not connecting with your husband or your spouse.
Or with yourself.
Right. And why? Why do couples do that? What is it about these sexual, or rather these sexless marriages that stay together?
Yeah. I think that when people, people get desperate when the attachment between them loosens, and they become almost crazy to try and get it back. Just like those tests they've done with babies, like they have babies who are attached to their mothers, and they ask the mothers to pull a passive face. The child starts hitting the mother. So it's a little bit like if your spouse suddenly sort of doesn't listen, or pulls away, or blindsides, or does stonewalling, there's a certain panic that the other person gets. And this is what is at the base of the unkindness that suddenly comes out between couples. But neither of them are kind of understanding what's happening. They think everything's over and it's bad. But really, it's that a whole lot of things have happened that they haven't been able to tell each other in a kind way, and they can't get it off their chest, or there's all these longings that they haven't been able to talk about. So you facilitate all that, and suddenly the love comes back.
Wow, it sounds so simple, is it?
It's not simple, no. And when you're the therapist, here's the part I don't like. You have to carry your client's stuff until you can deliver it back to them, because they kind of let it all out and you're containing it. That's the part that's a little bit difficult. I mean, I used to go on holidays, and because my husband would say to me, well, who are we sleeping with tonight? Who are you carrying around in you? And of course, I don't give him names, but he can kind of tell that I'm a little bit concerned about somebody or something.
That's why you're great at what you do.
Why?
Oh, you're great because, you carry it with you. You live it.
Yeah, you have to, yeah. But then it's like when you have children, right? Your mind is on them. Mm-hmm. Until they're launched, they're in your mind. They're in your mind. Now, they don't need you. It's like they don't need you when they get launched.
Right.
But that's when parents really have to realize that they should really let them go, because that's when you can be back together and be celebrating your kids going off. But a lot of parents have forgotten to keep their spousal stuff going, and they get into this panic of losing their kids because they have to rebuild their marriage.
And that's when a lot of marriages deteriorate because they're afraid to be with their partner.
That's one of the big divorce times when the kids leave home. That's a big. And the other one is in the third or fourth year when the babies come. A lot of guys feel displaced, and a lot of women feel a bit resentful about. It's like both of you suddenly can't be self-centered anymore. You got these babies who are 24/7, right? Like that cartoon in the New Yorker where the wife turns to the husband and she said, I was happy to marry you, but I had no idea it was going to be 24/7. And it's true, right?
Yeah.
Like where else does that happen except in your own home? That's why you so easily transfer to your marriage all the problems of your home. It's the only other time you live with somebody.
And don't they say that the longer you're married to someone, the more you become, you start to look like each other?
No.
No?
I heard that said, but I don't seem to find that that's true. You can look, they also say that about you're going to start to look like your dog.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, that can be cute depending on what type of dog you have.
Cute. But we should all think about ourselves like our dogs think about us. They love us, right?
Yeah, you got to love yourself. You know what I love is the saying that you have on your website. Live your life as an exclamation, not as an explanation.
Yeah, wouldn't that be good if we could do that?
Wow, that's a great line.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Hannah, this has been fabulous, and I really
Well, it's been a lot of fun. I hope we're not on the air, though. I'd just like to keep our conversation to ourselves.
Oh, don't worry. It's you'll only be heard by 100,000 or so people. No problem.
I'm going to Twitter
You know what, Steve? You're really a sensitive guy.
I know.
You should work with guys and really be a role model.
You think?
Yeah. You're very emotionally connected.
I've been very emotionally battered. I've taken a few jabs here and there.
How come?
I don't know. It's just the hand I was dealt, I guess. But you know what? I'm learning so much.
You mean earlier in life or now?
Yeah, well, earlier in life. If you go way back, my father died when I was 6. And,
no, that's awful.
And back when that happened, back in the day, parents didn't rush you into therapy.
No, and they also didn't commiserate because they thought if they would just not say anything, then you won't feel bad.
Exactly, and that's my mom acted like it almost didn't happen. I mean, she was with us the day, and so I'm wondering, how did I process that? And I extend it to our entire audience, all of you that may have suffered a loss at an early age or a divorce of your parents, which is perceived as a loss. That's abandonment, right?
Exactly. It's like the end of your life. And the terrible thing is that parents, because they divorce, in the hopes of finding somebody new, they don't realize that for the kid it's the end of their life because they're losing the only biological parents they're ever going to have. They need constant empathy for years to get over it, right? And for you, a boy, to lose his father at such a young age, that's a major trauma. And what you needed is to have someone to let you scream and yell and cry and go through the 4 stages of grief all the time, just letting it loose, right? So that you could then go get beyond that. That's horrible. I know. It's so unfair that we don't even know.
But I think that's being, I think, Hannah, anyone that sees you as their therapist is very fortunate because you really help them be introspective and dig deep down to understand why they're feeling the way they are, and then take that and actually do something about it.
Yes, well, thank you. And you know what? It's so fun to do. It's so much fun. So
do you tell people that there is a light at the end of the tunnel? You can get better if you do the work. Things can improve.
I always do because it's been my experience. It's still my experience. My own life. It's still my experience.
What a positive, uplifting message.
And, but it's the truth. And now all the research is proving it. The research is actually proving that those neurons that wire together, is the big expression, which means that, like, if you lost someone early, Steve, like you did, that's a big negative circle on the left side of the brain, and you're always saying, no, don't get involved, they're going to leave you, don't get involved, they're going to leave you, right? But also by taking the 4 steps to learn to change your brain so that your brain isn't running your life, you sort of stop and you say, hey, thanks for sharing, thanks, but you know what? Right now, I want you to listen to me. I'm going to trust this person. I know we've been hurt in the past. You're just trying to help me, but I'd like you now to help me by actually being quiet and letting me be open and loving to this person. You know what I mean? And that's the thing about trying to integrate those different parts so that something doesn't suddenly jump up, hit you and your spouse in the head, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's better to find out in the secrecy of your own therapeutic relationship, what are those things that are going to come up? And then you got a strategy.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's important to share with listeners, too, that Hannah really knows what she's talking about because, Hannah, you're a lecturer at U of T. You talk at the University of Toronto. You're a social worker, a psychotherapist. You've integrated a lot of this research into your practice. So
I've been so fortunate because, you know what, I've been so fortunate because I love to learn because I knew I was a problem and I knew I did not want to be.
So before we leave you, can you leave us with some messages for our listeners that will really help them through any kind of traumatic time in their life? It doesn't necessarily have to be divorce because, some people have moved through it wonderfully well and are just looking to find their happiness. What can you tell our listeners?
That if you're not happy, it's not your fault. But it is your birthright to be happy. And human persistence, yours, mine, and everybody, is top. You need to know that there is a way that you can be happy, and you shouldn't stop until you find it.
I love that. And on that note, Hannah, I just want to thank you so much for speaking with, and I'd love to have you back on. I hope you'll come back and talk to us again.
Especially if you two are together.
It was great talking with you.
Nice feeling.
Thank you
so much, you guys.
Thanks
have a great
time.
night.
You too.
Okay,
thanks,
bye,
Hannah.
everybody.
So,
bye.
Bye-bye. Unbelievable lady.
Really fabulous. I told you, when my client said to me that she had this therapist who had really helped her, and the way she just lit up when she spoke about Hannah, I thought, this is a therapist I have to reach out to. And I'm so glad I did, because I know that the wisdom she can impart to a client would just be so invaluable. I refer her now a lot, and I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to speak with her on The Smart Divorce.
And didn't you love her demeanor?
I think she's wonderful.
Don't you feel more relaxed now after listening to her? Hannah was so bright and relaxing to me. Very great guest.
Very introspective. She shared a lot of information. What she talked about happiness. Yeah, it is your birthright. People can choose to be victims and walk around miserable. That's their choice. But if you really did some work and introspection, and listen, therapy isn't for everyone. So you don't have to go to a therapist. I think that that's an important lesson and something that you need to know. And I liked what she talked about, the authentic self. Let me ask you something. Do you find that with some people, you are totally yourself, you open up and you're the introspective, fun-loving guy that I've gotten to know? Or with other individuals, you are just so guarded that they have no clue who the real Steve Peck is?
I would say the former, actually. I don't think I'm that guarded. And I try not to be that fake.
So you've got a high level.
I am what I am. You know what I'm saying?
Good for you. So you've got a high level of confidence.
Well, I don't know. I'm not so sure the two go together, but in that situation, try to be real, I guess.
Yeah, well, there you go. So you live your life as an exclamation, not as an explanation.
I love it. And if you want to find out more on Hannah, her website, hannatherapy.com.
Love it. Thank you so much for tuning in to The Smart Divorce on Divorce Source Radio. We've got many wonderful guests coming up, so please tune in again.
And I want to remind our listeners, if they'd like to write us an email, they can send it to divorcesourceradio@gmail.com. And I'm also on a campaign, Debbie, to tell people visit divorcesourceradio.com. Seems a lot of our listeners pick us up on iTunes or BlackBerry or somewhere else, and so they miss all the extra content we have at divorcesourceradio.com. And while you're there, click on the Facebook icon and join the growing Divorce Source Radio Facebook community.